So the Hangout is on air. We have the LFC Forum podcast, and today we'll be talking about the West Ham game that happened yesterday. Joining me tonight are Fergs and Hassan. Paul is not going to be joining us tonight because Paul is busy celebrating his 40th birthday today. We wish Paul all the very best and hope he has a great birthday. Although I can't imagine it being too happy because once you turn 40, you're only a decade away from your life being on the downslope. So happy birthday to you, Paul. Hope you have a great weekend and a great 27th birthday actually, and look forward to having you back on the podcast soon. But in the meantime, Hassan, Fergs, we're going to get right into it. Let's talk about yesterday's performance and the result. Why don't we start with you, Fergs?
Expected result, or at least should be something we should strive to expect. Score was good, plenty of goals. Other than sort of the last couple of games, and the Maribor as an exception, we kind of struggled lately, I think, to score a few goals. It was nice to see us get a good few. First half, maybe the first 25 minutes or so was a little slow and sloppy and looked a little frustrating, but we picked it up and got a damn good result in the end. So, yeah.
Hassan, talk to
me. Well, I mean, you take the result, 3 wins, but, 3 goal difference wins. So, this week could have gone better result-wise. And, it was good that West Ham was just atrocious. So, yeah, we'll take that and go into international break. Hopefully no one gets injured like last time.
Yeah, my initial thoughts are it was an important week because we needed to restore some confidence. The quality of opposition we faced over this week wasn't the greatest, but I think that's one of the reasons it made this week even more important because we needed to put all 3 teams to the sword, and we did that. And that's really important for just the psychological aspect, not just for the players and for the coaches, but also to some degree for the fans as well, because you just start to feel a little bit more optimism, a little bit of belief coming back into the team as well, that, they did not get embarrassed, they did not get humbled by a team by teams that are performing really poorly right now, and frankly, we should be beating. So I'm really glad that we beat Huddersfield, Maribor, and West Ham this week, and we beat them convincingly as well. That's really huge for this team psychologically, and I'm sure Klopp and the staff will be really happy regarding this. Why don't we talk a little bit about the performance yesterday? Hassan, what did you make of the performance? Because I saw your comments in the post-match thread that it was odd or strange. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, the reason why I said strange was that first half was almost like both teams there was no tempo really to the game. And there were 5 shots in the first half for both sides. 3 shots on our part, Firmino's chance in the first minute, and the 2 goals. And West Ham had a chance with Ayew, and I think Lanzina had a shot late in the game, late in the half. So you had 3 shots and 2 goals. That's why I found it very strange, because it wasn't like we didn't need to do much, which I didn't mind at all. Like, people might criticize and say, well, we could have done more, and that we were 2-0 up by halftime. I mean, we might as well conserve some energy, I think.
So what about you? How did you rate it?
The first sort of 25 was sloppy, and it was just kind of what we've seen of the first halves of the last couple of games, Huddersfield and the first half of the Maribor game as well. We were just slow to get out of the blocks, and things didn't really click into place. Now, I mean, obviously we had a bit of a formation change, so you can kind of allow it. And obviously, I mean, we didn't concede and make things difficult for ourselves early on. So it gave them a chance to settle. If we ignore that, because I say you can give them a bit of grace for that, after that, I thought we did convincingly well. We were professional about it. We had a bit of an iffy period where a lot of people were slagging Joe Gomez for it and giving him some abuse. I just think he was outsmarted for the goal that they did score. Lanzini, despite being quite a small guy, was just more experienced and made a better play of it. We kind of lost our heads for a little bit, despite scoring pretty much straight away after. And the threat of Carroll coming on gave us something different to think about. But all in all, I think, to be fair, we handled it reasonably well.
I have to say that I'm quite happy by the fact that yesterday we didn't actually concede a goal through a header or from a corner or set piece. That in itself is some marginal improvement. Just want to talk about Joe Gomez and the goal that he was at fault for. I gotta say, it's very hard for me to absolve him of blame, especially because Lanzini took it down on his chest. And I don't think that a striker or an attacker should get that much time in the box when you have someone that close to actually be able to chest the ball down and then get a shot away. So hopefully he learns from that. In addition to those kinds of things, obviously the plaudits will all go to Mo Salah. So just talk to me for a little bit about his performance and how great he's just been this season and where we would be without him. Hassan.
I think yesterday just showcased what he can do for us. In general, this season he's been our best player. He's arguably been the best signing so far this season in the Premier League. And I mean, yesterday, well, besides the counterattack for the first goal, the finish for the second goal was just fantastic. And I mean, he's just a very intelligent player. He is a road runner, but he couples that with real intelligence in terms of his movements and getting into the right areas.
Definitely. I agree.
And I think the most interesting part of his performance yesterday was that he was practically playing almost up top, like sometimes as a number 9, sometimes number 10. He was just floating around in a very central area for much of the game, which is a tweak to the way we approach the game.
Fergs, talk to me about Salah. Talk to me about Mane. How did you like our attack yesterday?
Can I just touch on the Gomez thing first?
Yes, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Like, I made a quick reference to it, but Lanzini gave him a bit of a shove beforehand, and while it was fair, it was kind of shoulder to shoulder. He gave him the shove and just fell off the back of him. So if you watch the replay again, what Joe's tried to do is tried to back into him to kind of get the positioning again. So he's done the right thing in response to the shoulder charge. So he's done right by trying to get back in front and make sure that Lanzini can't get the ball. But Lanzini just timed it really well. It was just really good play on his behalf. And while it's horrible to see a defender or that happen to a defender, like it was just one of those where it's his fault because it was obviously his man. But at the same time, you have to applaud Lanzini for it rather than chastise Gomez, I think. Because, I mean, again, if you watch it in slow motion, you can see he's trying to recover. He's not totally lost. He makes the right play for it. So, yeah, I'd put that down to a good play from Lanzini rather than a terrible error from Gomez. Again, that's just how I see it. But Salah, let's move on to him. Now, yeah, I can't disagree with the fact that he's probably been the signing of the season for any team easily. He's hit the ground running, and the biggest thing that stands out to me is the fact that he is so wasteful, but at the same time, he's our most productive player. Like, he scored the most goals. He's got a good amount of assists. It's just insane. If he could not waste the easy chances that he gets, like, I mean, he's a bargain anyway. Great signing and a damn good player. Can you just imagine if he just had that little bit more where he didn't need 4 or 5 chances to get a goal? He would be absolutely insane. So yeah, it's one of those, like, you can't stop watching and you have to applaud and appreciate the contribution he's giving. But he's still capable of more if you can just add that bit extra end product. So yeah, hopefully he gets that to and like puts us on a bit of a run, because that's 3 in a row. Yeah, we've got the international break. If we can hit the ground running after that, we've got a long period of reasonably easy games coming up, or at least on paper, if you look at the table-wise and where teams are on the table. So yeah, it should be good for us. A little bit of confidence beforehand, take into that, and yeah, let's hope we hit the ground running. And welcome back, Manny.
So I want to touch on this, the the two signings that we made over the last couple of seasons, Mane and Salah, because conceivably we've signed them as wide players and we play them often as wide players. But what really impresses me about both of them, as Hassan actually referenced early on with Salah, is that not only do they have a lot of pace, but the intelligence to go with it, the productivity as well. Both Salah and Mane, in my opinion, can play anywhere in the front. They can play on the left, they can play on the right, they can play centrally as a striker or as a number 10 and be extremely productive in that fashion. And I think Mane, in particular, one of the things that is overlooked sometimes, or maybe not necessarily given enough praise, is his vision. He's an exceptionally gifted player in every respect. And just the fact that he's paired at the same time with Salah on the pitch is just absolutely pace overkill for any team. And a team like West Ham, who aren't very good, are going to be punished repeatedly by players like him. And when you add a player like Oxlade-Chamberlain, who admittedly has a lot of pace and maybe not the best end product, but you could see even for him, he got his yesterday as well. So I'm really happy with that. One of the things that we saw a little bit different yesterday was the change in formation with Chan and Wijnaldum sitting together. Talk to me a little bit more about just how that formation worked, and if you guys feel like it's a good thing going forward, as long as Lallana and Coutinho aren't available. Fergs, let's go with you.
For me, the biggest thing that stood out yesterday was Wijnaldum was invisible but effective, which totally sounds contradictory. And we've come to kind of accept the fact that he goes missing in games. But he just it was one of those where there was much better performances on the pitch. So he was overlooked yesterday, and me included. Like, now I think about it, his contribution, he was always kind of in the right place at the right time, despite not really doing an awful lot. Yeah, it was really strange, like hard for me to describe. I suppose like anybody that watched the game will understand. He wasn't like, he didn't stand out for his contribution and didn't stand out for doing amazing things, but it was just steady and did what he was supposed to do in a two-man midfield. And it was obviously something we're not used to watching. But we haven't played much of that formation, if any, at all. So to see him partner Chan in a two-man midfield was definitely an interesting concept.
Hassan?
Well, about Wijnaldum, he had 4 interceptions yesterday, which is not something you expect of him much because, those defensive numbers don't tend to show up with him. But yeah, he is a steady player for us. I think sometimes when he isn't playing, we sort of miss someone who just knows where to be. Because, I mean, one criticism is that he doesn't do enough with the ball. But at the same time, I think he does get into decent positions to receive the ball, which I think we lack without him. But I think yesterday the interesting part of the formation change was the fact that Salah was playing practically up top with Firmino, and Oxlade was on the right and Mane on the left. And the front two of Firmino and Salah were more or less like roaming around, causing problems for the other side. I think the biggest question out of this is, where would Coutinho fit? So yeah, I mean, I'm interested, but at least Klopp has acknowledged that maybe a formation change is needed.
Can I just jump on the end of that quickly?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Asking about Coutinho now, Paul's going to love this. So can we ban him?
Oh God, not this.
No. So had we played the formation we played yesterday for a longer period of time, what Paul was saying about sticking Coutinho into the midfield, I would have no problem whatsoever, because I'm quite confident he can do the job that Wijnaldum did yesterday, despite maybe not as much defensive contribution, but just being there in the right place at the right time, and supporting Chan. Now, it wasn't just those two, because I felt like Ox spent an awful lot of time in the centre as well, despite being kind of deployed on the wing. And at times, it felt like we had three bodies still in the centre of midfield, despite not playing that formation. So, I mean, down to Klopp's tactics there. But if we were to keep that sort of shape, I would have no problems with it being a Chan and Coutinho 2 in the middle, with support from hardworking players such as Ox and Mane.
I'm happy with the fact that we played two central midfield players, simply because when you're without Lallana, when you're without Coutinho, there's no reason to overpack the midfield with Henderson, Milner, Wijnaldum, Chan. Three of those four. There's absolutely no need for it. Two is perfectly reasonable, especially against a team like West Ham who are struggling. So I'm very happy that Klopp acknowledged that and decided to play that way. Again, if Coutinho and Lallana after the international break are still not available for starting, I would like to see Klopp maintain this. Now, he can put any pair in the midfield. It doesn't really matter. I think Milner, Wijnaldum, Chan, Henderson are all interchangeable. So it doesn't really make too much of a difference there. But I'd like to see this going forward, as long as we don't have Lallana and Coutinho, because then I do think that we may need to incorporate a 4-3-3 so that we can incorporate Lallana, Coutinho, and someone in the number 6, and then allow Salah, Firmino, and Mane to play up front.
Well, on paper yesterday, we had a two-man midfield, and the West Ham midfield got totally crowded out of the game. Like, we controlled the midfield, which is not something our midfield's known for. And so despite playing a player down on paper compared to what we used to, we had much better control of the midfield, which was a really strange thing to watch.
I think. Go on. Sorry, I think that was partly because, as you pointed out, I think Oxlade-Chamberlain was a bit narrow on the right, so he would slide it from the right, try to stop that outlet ball to the left at times. I think Chan was deeper than Wijnaldum, really. But although the two were sitting, I think Chan was more holding, and he was the guy receiving the ball more than Wijnaldum, and trying to get the ball forward quickly as possible. So I think that's partly to do with it. I don't think it's a very wide system. Then again, we don't have traditional wide players in any sense. Our wide players tend to like to go central. So it would crowd out. If you watch a Leipzig game this season, you'll see similar attributes to what we did yesterday. And I think Keita would fit in perfectly to that.
Yeah, Keita, he can fit in any variation of Klopp's midfield, just because he is so dynamic. Now, we've talked about Keita, and we talked about him as maybe a number 6 or number 8. I would personally like to see him as a number 8. I think he's just too dynamic to be a number 6, even though he could be very good there. But keeping with the number 6, number 8 topic, and the player who started as a number 6 yesterday, Emre Can, he seems to be, at least his contract situation seems to be really precarious at this point, with almost all signs pointing to the fact that he's going to exit next summer, probably agree a deal in January with a team like Juventus possibly, and then leave us. The reason it seems that he is not signing the contract, at least from any credible source, is that there is a lack of a release clause in his new contract, or at least the one that Liverpool is offering him. So talk to me a little bit about this situation with Emre. Do you think it's a smart move by the club to hold their ground? Or do you think that we should find a way to resolve this by coming to a compromise on the release clause? Hassan?
I think it depends what's the value of the release clause. I mean, that's probably that. I think that would probably be a bigger question than whether he should have a release clause or not. Because with the current value of players, I could easily see a guy like Emre Can going for 30 million. Easily.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're the club, you're between a rock and a hard place. So I mean, I would rather have him stay, simply because I don't think like Henderson, Wijnaldum are better than him. I think Chan has a more well, more of a distinct role in the side than any other midfielder we have. But I mean, because I just think he isn't going to sign regardless, and I think he wants to leave to Juve if that chance arises.
I don't want to see him leave. Like, he's still relatively young. He's not exactly a wonder kid, a young player that's going to take everything by storm. But you can see that he's improving. He struggled an awful lot with injury issues, and he seems to be over those. And I think his athleticism has improved a bit. He's still a little bit ponderous sometimes, but yeah, he's definitely one we should keep hold of. But at the same time, I can totally see why the club would be willing to let him go, because we've kind of got an abundance of players able to sit and play in the midfield. We've got Katie coming in next season. If he's wanting to employ Henderson there long term in the 6 role, and then we've got Kater as well who can cover that, and then we obviously have Wijnaldum, Lallana, and Coutinho to fill the other spots. So we're kind of overloaded there. And yeah, I wouldn't want him to hold back and be stuck with us and not get game time, because I'm a fan of the player as well, not just the fact that he plays for us. He would do great at somewhere like Juventus, because the game's a little bit slower over there, and I think it would give him the time to thrive. So I don't want to lose him. We paid just short of 10 mil for him. We kind of really could do with recouping that minimum. So I don't want to see him leave free. But if that's what we have to do, so be it.
Yeah, I think the disappointing aspect of this is the fact that his contract is running out and we'll possibly see no value for him. That's probably my biggest thing with the whole saga. It's not so much him going, because while I do like him as a player, and I've always felt that he should have been the number 6 and Klopp should have never role reversed with him and Henderson, I still feel that he lacks the consistency that you need at this club, at least to play for this club and be a great player at this club. So in that respect, I'm disappointed to see him possibly go for nothing. But I'm not necessarily too disappointed about him going, especially with Naby Keita coming in next summer. Now, as far as this policy with the club, I kind of do side with them, but at the same time, I do almost wonder going forward, agents are going to pick up on this and agents are going to wise up to this ploy. So I wonder if long term, when it comes to actually getting players to sign with us, if this may be a stumbling block where if a player, let's say, has multiple offers, multiple lucrative offers on the table from other clubs that are just as, doing just as well as we are, will they decide to forego our offer simply because we don't put release clauses in contracts as a result? So I'm kind of wondering there, because release clauses are basically put in there for a player to have some flexibility in terms of a move. And I can see why players want them. I can see why clubs don't want them. But what are your guys' thoughts on the idea of the release clause in general? And do you think that this is a policy that can come to hurt us going forward? Fergs?
Yeah, definitely. Because it's like the club trying to take moral high ground, like we're in control and trying to be the bullies, really. I totally understand it from a business point of view. But the thing is, if we're going to be so adamant that we're not going to do that, and like I said, if a player has to make a decision between multiple lucrative offers, they're going to go elsewhere. Like, it's cutting our nose off to spite our face. We're wanting to be sort of, what's the word? Never mind. We're just trying to act like we're doing the right thing. And there's the bigger clubs in the league that can afford to pay whatever they want and make these offers and not really care about release clauses and stuff. We're not going to be able to compete with them. Like, the better players are going to want to know they can get out. They're not going to sign contracts where they're tied down with no say in it. It's good to try and curb player power. I totally understand the reason, but it's not going to work. And I think we should really reevaluate.
Hassan?
Well, I think it will hurt us, but it isn't the first time the club, well, FSG, if you want, have tried to, be too smart for their own good, because we also have the issue of being, well, a lot of teams hate dealing with us because we have this odd payment structure. So we already have a bad reputation among teams, which is why a lot of negotiations go long. And so I think the release clause is just, an additional thing that we you know, try to outmaneuver, but end up shooting ourselves in the foot, I think. In the case of Emre Can, if the release clause is £30 million, at least we're not losing him for free. That's the thing that I think FSG should realize, that if we are going to lose a player, at least let's not lose him for free, because I think that might be something that happens more in the near future.
You see, logically for me, I don't understand why we wouldn't include the release clause in his contract. I believe maybe we're feeling that if we include a release clause, let's say of 40 million, they feel like we'd lose a blossoming player for 40 million, which would be way under the value they expect him to be, maybe 2 or 3 years down the line. But in this case, we're losing him for nothing. So I really don't understand why this is coming down to, why we're being so hard-headed about this issue. Because after all, we have developed this player for the last 3-4 years now, since actually 2014 when he joined here. So I really don't understand why we would go ahead and do this, especially for a player like Emre Can. We are just going to say, no, we're going to make an example of you in this contract situation, because I totally get Emre Can's idea. Like, I want a release clause in my contract because I've seen what's happened with Coutinho. Although, albeit he's been probably at this contract negotiation for some time prior to the whole Coutinho fiasco. But I think even more now, he would want a release clause in his contract, because he doesn't want to feel like the club has trapped him at some point. So I can totally understand that. And I sympathize with players in that respect. I believe that they should have some mobility. They should have some ability to mobilize themselves and basically get more money if they can get more money at other clubs. I don't necessarily, that's just the American way of thinking. That's how like the sports media here has brainwashed us. But I believe in that. Yeah, go ahead, Fergs. Jump in.
I want to jump on that as well. Oh, feedback. In that, it's one of the only jobs I can think of where their employers have the final say on what you can and can't do. Like in any other job, essentially, football is a job. To play football is a job. So yeah, you sign a contract with a company, but you have a way to get out. If you want to quit the job, you can quit the job. You don't hear of footballers quitting the football team because they can't either get their own way or because things are not going right, etc., etc. Why can they not just quit and go somewhere else? It's stupid. Like, you are tied down. So I understand why he's doing it. And I can understand why the club's doing it. I just don't agree with it.
Hassan, you have any points to add?
The concept of a transfer fee in itself is just weird if you think about it. There's no precedent to it in any context in any other job, really. So, it doesn't stop at mobility or anything else. And I think you would be a big fan of mobility, considering you support the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, mobility is a huge thing for any player. Now in the NBA, you see no trade clauses and things like that, which give players the power to make their decision. And obviously, I think the NBA, as far as the league goes, is probably the most player power heavy league in the entire world. I think in no other league do players have the power like they do in the NBA. But again, I just don't necessarily think that this is necessarily a wise philosophy. Not in particular because of Chan, we'd lose Chan for nothing, but I'm thinking more long term. Agents will wise up to this very quickly, and agents may just tell their players it's not worth going here because they're not going to give you that freedom to be mobile when you want to go. And so that for me is where I'm a little bit concerned about this policy, because the agents might just go to the other player, hey, remember that summer when Coutinho wanted to go to Barcelona and it never materialized because Liverpool just did not want to sell? So I do think that that is something that can hurt us long term in terms of being able to attract players here.
It's a payday for the agents as well.
Exactly. It is a payday for the agents. Agents want players to move more frequently because they're going to get more sign-on bonuses. So obviously agents, it's in their interest too to have players be able to move more freely throughout Europe and other leagues as well. So any final thoughts, guys, regarding this entire weekend and what we saw and what we're expecting after the international break? Hassan?
Good week to rebound after the Spurs lost. Sorry. And I mean, hopefully, again, no one gets injured. Mane has an extra game, if I'm not mistaken, because of whole mess with the referee. So here's hoping everyone returns, and Coutinho and Lallana should return after international break, so that should be good.
Fergs?
It's good to put a run together. We discussed that that's what we needed to do minimum, so we've done it. Happy with that, and I love Moreno. Well done, kid.
We all love Moreno. He's the best defender we have right now.
It's kind of hard not to right now.
Yeah, that's for Paul. I think that's definitely one for Paul.
Yeah, for Paul.
I mean, I've been entirely way too positive this podcast, and I don't like it. So I'm going to end on a slightly more sour note and just say, Mignolet, what the hell were you doing?
Yeah, I don't want to touch too much on Mignolet. Just not one of those things that I don't really have. I don't have the patience for, the time for.
Captain Fantastic.
He is anything but that, I would say. But anyway, guys, thank you so much. And let's wrap it up. And have a great weekend. Take care. Bye.
See ya.